Hey everybody, welcome to the history of the Dice Tower as we continue to go through the years of the different things that happened over the Dice Tower, and I try to recollect from my memory what was going on, just talk about it a little bit. Today we're talking about the year 2021, which was very different than I expected it to be in 2019. 2020, as we talked about last time, really changed up everything. But 2021 was a year of new beginnings of sort. So a couple things happened immediately in 2021, and it wasn't a surprise because I knew it was happening in 2020. My daughter got married. Definitely the pandemic moved this up. I think they were planning to get married in 2023 maybe, or 2022, but they definitely moved up the wedding, and that was good. It was a nice way to begin the year. It definitely made me feel older. But that's how things work, right? So that was the first thing that happened in the year. But there was another really big thing that happened. So I'm getting ready to run the Dice Tower Kickstarter. We're getting everything ready. And I got a phone call from the landlord at the Dice Tower. And he said, we've decided to sell the house. We're going to sell it in May. We want to give you guys the opportunity to find a new place. Also, you have the first opportunity to buy the house. And I thought, well, buying a house, maybe we should buy a house. Well, that's interesting. Maybe we should buy a studio. But the thing was, I wasn't sure we wanted that one because it was pretty small. And we had a new video editor coming on. And I thought, man, we should look for something bigger. So this suddenly became a thing that I wasn't expecting to do. The market at that point was still a bit of a buyer's market. That changed very shortly thereafter. We were very fortunate in that regard. But it was just starting to go up. People were moving and things. So we started looking around, and it was an interesting process as we started looking for a place to find. We went out into the middle of the Everglades. We were looking, so here in Florida, the Homestead is the southernmost city in America, in the continental U.S. anyway. It's the last city before you go to the Keys, and a good chunk of Florida is next to the Everglades, which was a little bit where we were, but I went to look even farther into that area because in this area there's lots of nice big houses. There's not a lot of other things going on, not a lot of cars driving by. And so after finding some very odd places, a place that we were pretty sure was adjacent to some drug dealers, we found the studio that we're in now. And I'm telling you, we walked into that studio and this house, and we instantly were like, yes. This would be amazing. And one of the big things was we wanted to move the Dice Tower library into the studio so that we didn't have to go. I mean, as much fun as it was for me to go to that storage unit and just get lost in there and work in there. And it's working in a storage unit. It's working in a storage unit. It's not fantastic. And now we could have it in the same place. So we started that process. I've never bought anything in my life before that magnitude. And that took a while. At the same time, Chris Yee came on board. I told you I was looking for another video editor. And so Chris Yee came with very high recommendations. I had already known him. He had a podcast on Dice Tower Network. I had played games with him at Dice Tower West or Meeple and MeepleCon. And it's, when he came on board, suddenly our dynamic started to grow. We had all been kind of sitting there. It was, like I said, like alone in the world. We were doing stuff online, but we're like, okay, well, maybe 2021 we'll change it up a bit. We ran another Kickstarter, which went well. We added jigsaw puzzles, a werewolf deck. Those things were pretty good. And the Dice Tower marble thing that I had started as a lark became something that was just really fun for me to do. And we got a brand new marble track that was made for us. And I wasn't switching to marbles or anything, but I liked doing that as kind of a side gig, and it was nice getting that new track in. But COVID was still around, and Dice Tower West got canceled, which made it a full year because Dice Tower West had been the last con that we had gone to, and well, now we canceled one. But this was a tough decision to make, but there still wasn't a lot of things going on. And there wasn't a lot of, the vaccines hadn't quite come out yet. And so we actually had to make the call to cancel Dice Tower East. Now, that was a really tough one because I was like, I have no idea where we're going to be in July. Can we run it? Can we not run it? We had to make the call. Now, incidentally, I think we might have been able to run it in July, but we didn't know at the time, and we had to make the call early. And we lost money on that deal for sure. The hotel charges fee for doing that. And I was like, man, that really kind of bums me to have to cancel Dice Tower West and Dice Tower East. Again, another year where we're losing these conventions. And Dice Tower East now, 2 years that this isn't happening. And then the vaccines came out. Whew, this was fantastic. And it was a really interesting time frame because we got the vaccines. We were able to get them a little bit earlier down here in Florida. And once that happened, then Z came back into work and Chris was there, and we then moved. All this was like in a space of a few weeks. And suddenly, not only were we back together, yes, one big happy family, but we were moving, and moving was a thing. So there's a lot of it. Moving is kind of a mixed bag because moving is such a pain in the neck. But there's also that get rid of the old stuff, the stuff that we don't use, and move into a new space. Like right now I'm sitting in a small little studio here, which is one of 4 studios that we have now here at the Dice Tower. And that's nice. And it was just so cool coming here and getting things set up. There was a lot of work we had to put into this place and all, but it was just fun putting that together, work as a team, bringing in the library. I was so excited about that. When moving day came, there was 2 things of moving. There was the moving of the Dice Tower stuff, the desks and all that. And then there was the moving of the Dice Tower library because they were at 2 different locations. And I think I had more fun with the Dice Tower library. But it was nice to come back here. Dice Tower East, by the way, we decided that we were going to go back to the Carib instead of the Florida hotel, which we had originally gone to, because we found out that they were actually very wonderful to work with and stuff. And I started talking to them about maybe running one of our retreats there. But we moved into this new thing. Like I said, it took us a while, but now we were back together. We were a team working here, and it was a great time, between Mike and Roy and Kenny and Z and me and Chris. I just remember that just as a kind of a joyful time. It felt like a new beginning. While after we set everything up, a very unique opportunity crossed my path in the middle of all this, where Roy came to me and that someone had passed away, and his family did not know what to do with his collection. So I kind of on the spur of the moment offered to buy the collection, and it was shipped down here. And it was not a inexpensive purchase, but it was still one of the most unique things that happened, where these people pulled up here at the new studio in a pickup truck towing a trailer, and in the trailer were just boxes of all shapes and sizes from somebody, Mr. Karma, who had collected games but barely touched them. I mean, I think 4 games in this whole collection were even opened. And we did a mega unboxing. I don't think we'll ever get to that point where we'll have an unboxing that spectacular and that grandiose. But it was interesting. It was unique. And it helped build our library up because I was looking to get some of these games for the library. And I know it helped that family out. But it was just like, that's one of the biggest moments. And also we had this new studio, which we suddenly filled with games. Now we went through those. It took us a while to go through those. But I had all these games just kind of sitting around. Then our spectaculars. I had started them last year, and I was like, you know what? I really do like doing these spectaculars. The spectaculars really were working. So in 2021 was kind of the year where we started getting these in. The Summer Spectacular in particular, we did a mega announcement video, which was so fun and so successful that we decided to do it again in 2022. And we're going to do it again this year. It was just such a fun event to run with all these publishers announcing really cool things. And the Dice Tower Awards, doing them online was a lot of fun. Our live playthroughs, we started getting those together, and it started happening more and more often. Hey, we're all together live now. We have different people in the team to play through these things. Our relationship with Cool Stuff, like I said, Cool Stuff was getting more involved in QML, Quartermaster Logistics, and that started going away. And so I started looking around, and we started working with Game Nerds. So our relationship with Game Nerds started during this time. And then finally, we went to a convention. It had been well over a year, but we went to the Gathering of Friends. The Gathering of Friends, a small invite-only convention from Alan Moon. And this is the first convention that was canceled in 2020. It It was a small little con, and they're like, you know what, I just am not sure. I think we're going to have to cancel it. This one was very much a very specific. Everyone's like a little nervous going in, but it went pretty well. It was a tiny, small convention, but I think it gave a lot of people kind of hope and looking forward to the future. Dice Tower West was going to happen in 2022, and so, at least we were planning for it to happen. So I went to Vegas, scouted out the new hotel there, and when I was in Vegas, I was like, man, we could have run Dice Tower East during this time. But you know what? It is what it is. And at that point, I thought, you know what? I have an idea. Instead of running a Dice Tower retreat, let's run 2 Dice Tower retreats. Let's run the one that we were planning to here in Miami, but let's run one with the Carib Hotel, since we're working with them for Dice Tower East anyway. Let's run one. They got open space. We have time. We'll run 2 this year, and that will take the place sort of Dice Tower East. It didn't, obviously a retreat's much smaller than Dice Tower East, but it was something that we could do. So we ran 2 retreats. Also, Gen Con started up again, and a very weird date. It was really weird. We went to a retreat and Gen Con back to back, and Gen Con wasn't the same as it was, but again, I still remember going to that Gen Con and just everyone was so happy just to see other people again. It was just a time of, yay, there was excitement, the retreats, both of them went really well. Hey, we were meeting people again. We also started something new that we hadn't done on the Dice Tower. We have been vlogging from conventions. A lot of times Jason Levine would do our vlogging for us, but we started a group vlog, which we thought worked really well, because when you're at a con and things, sometimes you don't vlog something because you're not thinking about it or you're involved in the activity. We put the group vlog together and we were so happy with how that worked that we started doing this from then on out. I also started gaming here at the studio. I was excited about that. We had gamed at the other studio, but there wasn't a whole lot of room. There's not a ton of room here now. I think we can have like 15, 20 people. And if you ever do want to come game at the studio, email me. You never know. It might happen. It might not. It all depends on timing and stuff. But we started gaming here at the studio, and Chris was bringing in people. Obviously, one of the people he brought to the gaming was his wife, and I found out that Wendy liked to paint, so I had her start painting, and as time went by, that kind of morphed a little bit, and I had her do more and more things. I asked her to start working with our podcasts and to work with the Dice Tower Library, where now that's her main job, is running the Dice Tower Library. They also brought a friend of theirs in called Camilla. I didn't know anything about Camilla. She was another person who showed up, but she was very outgoing and everything. And I thought, wow, I really liked her outgoing personality. And I'm always looking for people to do live gaming with who are not, not, I have to fly them in. People in the area makes it's a little easier. So at the same time, Camilla had a part-time job at the time where she was administrative stuff. And I thought, well, I have all these extra games I need to get rid of. There's a lot of logistics, and Kenny was up to his neck and just running stuff. So I asked her to help with that part-time and then show up on some of our live stuff. And I believe the Winter Spectacular was the first time, or maybe it was the Autumn Spectacular. But when she came on, and then as time went by, that morphed into a full-time job. We started a lot of different videos in 2022, or 2021, sorry. I did a whole big thing with Marvel United, which kind of, I just really liked the game, but people seem to like that. And it was fun to do a deep dive into a game. We do lots and lots of little games. I can't do deep dives in every game, but that was fun. I started going through the Dice Tower Library shelves because they're here at the studio. We did Catch-a-Paloozas, which was an idea that kind of came up, I think, probably in one of our top 100s. We had started the year off with live top 100s, and they had done well again. Someone would say, I haven't played this game. We're like, you must play it. So we did Catch-a-Paloozas, where one person or more people haven't played the game, and then we would catch them up and play it. And I was doing a lot more reviews with my daughters. I have always included my kids if they want to be in videos. At this point, Holly was behind the scenes working for me, painting miniatures. But Holly and Amy, my number 2 and 3 daughters, didn't really like playing games that much, which is fine. But my number 5 and number 6 daughters, Violet and Ruby, did, and they also had a fun dynamic on camera. So I started doing more things with them and doing reviews with them. Ben Maddox started doing design notes where he was talking to different people in the industry online. So that worked well. And then I made a pretty fateful decision near the end of 2021. And this is actually wasn't something that I came to lightly. So the Dice Tower has had several pivotal moments as it's gone through. And one of those was I decided to start doing reviews. I did a few in 2002, but 2003, 20 years ago, was when I really started doing reviews. And then the next big step in the Dice Tower was the actual name, the Dice Tower, which was our podcast that we had started. And as the years went by, we made lots of different changes. I mentioned we'd added Mandy and Suzanne and stuff, but I was just getting weary of it. It got to the point where I would be like, oh, it's podcast recording time. And I shouldn't feel like that. I don't feel that way about other things. I don't feel that way about the videos and stuff. And it wasn't anything that Eric is a fantastic co-host and stuff. It was just starting to wear on me. And I thought, I've always was impressed. There was a podcast called Game On with Cody and John, and I was always impressed that they went out with a bang. They went out and ended on their own terms, because most podcasts fade away. I know this because we'll check up on podcasts and I'll be like, I haven't heard that podcast in a while. And they do a podcast and that doesn't end. It just kind of dissipates and no one talks about it again. And I didn't want to do that. So I thought, you know what? We're coming up to episode 750, which is in 2022, was where it would be. And I think it's time to end the podcast. I'm going to end it. I'm not going to let it continue in any other form. I just want to end it. I still want to do something with Eric because I really liked working with him. So we talked about that, and I'll talk about that in the next video in 2022 at the table with Tom and Eric. But so I made that announcement. I knew what it was. And I tell you what, it was tempting because I made the announcement near the end of the year. And I thought, well, I could make, is this going to affect our crowdfunding, our Kickstarter? But it wouldn't be right to not announce it ahead of time. I wanted to also give people heads up. We told people 10 episodes ahead, 10 weeks before we ended the podcast. And of course, there was a great outpouring of unhappiness. And I knew that was going to happen. I knew people liked the podcast. I'm pretty proud of what we've done over the years. But I also like the fact that we were able to kind of end it on my terms and, move on. But it was a pretty big thing there near the end. We had a big winter spectacular that went really well. But as 2021 came to a close, I was like, all right, we're now finally back to normality, right? And you know that 2022 was not particularly normal, but it's definitely heading there. But 2021, when I look back that year, as moving to a new studio was like the focal point of that year. But as 2021 came to a close, I looked around and said, wow, the Dice Tower is not what I had expected it to be. Here I am. And now when we go through the studio, I got Chris, Wendy, Roy, Mike, Camilla, Z, Kenny, Lindsay, Amy, who helps run our contest. And we suddenly have this full-fledged team. We got Mark Street and Stella doing the Kickstarter type side of things. And we have different contributors and reviewers. Brian Drake doing different, people. And I suddenly realized I have a whole lot more that I'm doing. And I was delegating more and passing more stuff off. But 2022 was a year where I did that a little bit more. So that is kind of where we're at. I'll get to one more year. If you're watching this way in the future, I'm recording this in 2023. So I have one more year to talk about 2022. But 2021 was a good year overall. It was a year of happiness and reunification because we had been apart for so much of 2020, and to come back together felt really good. So that's another year of history of the Dice Tower. I'm Tom Vasel. Thanks for watching.